Welcome, guys. It's great that you're here. It's time now to start with another part of the MeetMat tutorial. Today, my focus will be on the base, as you can see, the base of MeetMat, as you can see here. But before we can start doing all these base details, we need to create this rock jade material, and that will be the focus for today. It's nice to see some familiar faces in the chat already. And today, again, thanks to the recent guys, we're going to have a small giveaway at the end. So be sure to stay during all the stream. Okay, now let's get started. This is where we leave it last week. Carlos de la Rosa, hi. Yeah, you ran. Faces equal nicknames. I already started recognizing some of you. Okay, so sorry about that. This is where we ended last week. We talked about how to create the filter for the paint. We already had the base for the ceramic and the clay. We also added some of the roughness, and we also copy all those materials and add some small details at the body, as you can see here in these parts. Okay, now I asked you guys if you wanted to see how I painted everything. Basically everything was the same as the face, just modifying a little bit the colors and modifying and basically hand painting everything, almost everything, all the details that you can see here. But that is sort of a monotonous and repetitive process. It's nothing different to what I already showed you guys. So I was wondering what could I share that will be of use for you. So I think that we can skip that part. If you want to see a specific part of the model, let me know in the chat or in the comments of the video once I upload it again, and we can tackle that specific part if you want to. But for now, I think I'm going to skip all the blue parts painting right now, because it's basically the same as what we did last week with the face. And we're going to start to focus on the base. All today's tutorial will be all in Designer. So let's get started. Okay, let me close this. And this is the material that we're going to create today. Okay, seems a little bit flat. Let me change this to, okay, it's already tessellation. And let's adjust the tessellation and the scale. Now it looks a lot better. Okay, so this will be our focus of today. Let me create a new graph. Here I select PBR metallic roughness. I'm going to call it J2. Okay. And let's open it. We have this. Let me see, how can I organize this a little better for you. I think something like this will work best. And now I pin this one here. Now this other one, I'm going to keep it here as reference, and we can start. Okay, if you have any doubts or of any part of the process, or if you are going slow or fast, please let me know. Okay, I see a question by Miguel. So you paint everything blue by hand without importing anything in the 3D view, like the head? Yes, Miguel, I painted all by hand. Sometimes I use symmetry, but mostly because I wanted to break the symmetry, I did all the details by hand. It's really easy. Once you have the filter, painting the mask is really easy, and also gives an additional hand paint look that you cannot get if you use alphas. So I thought that was a better option. Okay, now let me know also in the chat how familiar or unfamiliar are you with Designer, or if you don't understand a node or anything, let me know and I'll try to explain it along the process. Okay. Carlos, don't worry about watching the tutorial multiple times. It will upload it, so you can watch it at your own pace. Still, if you have any questions, let me know, and it's easier for me to answer it in real time. Okay. Let's see. The first part that we need to do right now is to create a splatter circular. Okay, splatter. Since I see that Miguel and Carlos are new to Designer, I'll try to explain a little bit of the nodes, one of each node that I add and why I'm adding it. Splatter circular, what it does is splatter shapes in a circular way, as the name says. You can change the amount, you can change the number of rings that the splatter can have, and you can even change with the position, change give it a spiral factor to make some crazy shapes. This kind of shapes, or were some of the ones one of the tricks that I used in my tiles, for example, because here all the maps are procedural. All of this is made fully in Designer. These are actually masks, and some for example, these curvature shapes, or for example that you can see here, or let me see if I can find a better example. These ones here are also made with this kind of effect of splatter circular. As you can see, you can create a little spiral, and if you increase enough the pattern amount and then blur it, you can have a continuous shape. But well, let's get back to business. So first I changed the amount to around 52, and I removed the spiral factor. I added also 6 rings, and then in position I increased the radius all the way to 3. As you can see, when you go above 1, everything starts to repeating in a weird way, but that's what we want right now. Another thing is that I changed the pattern from paraboloid to disc. The radius multiplier, also I change it to 0.45, and increase the angle random all the way up. Also, offset along direction, I increased it a lot, if I recall correctly. And in the scale, I reduce it a lot to create this sort of map, right? A lot of points, small points. Let me see here. The scale is, I think I want them a little bit smaller, something like this. What I want is to have this many small points. And finally, with the luminance, I increase the luminance almost all the way to 1. I think 91, 92 will do. And now we have this. Okay, so we have a lot of dots in the pattern, in this case 52. Also a lot of rings. I increase it all the way to 6. I mean, in reality, you can just play with the values until you find something that you like, but this is what works for me right now. Then here in radius again, I changed the pattern to discs, then the radius to 3, the radius multiplier to 45, the angle random all the way to 1, the offset along direction, I increase it also almost all the way to 1. What I want is to have different dots, or what I'm looking for is to find different dots with different luminance. Try to avoid this kind of stuff. Sometimes you cannot avoid it, but try to minimize it as much as you can with the parameters. Then I made the dots really small with the scale inside the size, and increase the luminance value to create a random all the way to 0.91. It's not recommended to increase it all the way to 2, because that way you'll get full white and full black values. As you can see here, some of the dots disappear, and I don't want that because I want the dots to be there, but I also want to have a clear black background for the next step. The next part is to use a distance node. You can connect both inputs there. In the command source distance, click only source and increase it in a crazy way. That will give you this kind of pattern. This is what we're looking for. Okay, but now if we check the image here, we can see that we are only using half of all the histogram values of the image. So we add an auto levels, and now we have a lot of more contrast. But if we check the histogram, we now are using all the image histogram. Okay, that's the first part. Now we want to create these edges or shapes to differentiate the different rocks. So let's create an edge detect node. We want a smaller edge. I think this is too thick. Maybe something like 1.3 is okay. And let's reduce the roundness a lot. Maybe 0.5. I want to keep these round shapes, but not too much. Maybe a little bit more, around 65, 64. It's okay. Okay, and with that we have the base pattern, as you can see here. We can also, if we don't like, for example, if we have some issues like this that we don't like too much, what we can do is here in the base parameters, change the random seed. And by changing the random seed, we're going to have a different arrangement, as you can see here. I think this one looks better. We still have a little bit of this, but with the other effects, we're going to remove that, but nothing too noticeable. Now, let's connect this to the output so we can see something. So what I need right now is the height map. This one I don't need. Also this one I don't need. The ambient occlusion, and let's also get the normal. And I usually, what I do with the outputs is I connect the height map initially to a levels, and then I create I connect it to a normal. I add a blur, but a high quality blur. I increase the quality of the blur and reduce it to almost nothing. I do this as a safeguard in case I leave something that is too sharp in the height map to avoid any tessellation issues. As you can see, the difference between the blur is noticeable, so we can even reduce it a little bit more, so maybe something like this. And finally, if we go to view outputs in 3D, we're going to see everything black. Maybe it's not what we want. Let me see. Let's add an ambient occlusion also and connect it. And now we can see in the 3D view what we are having here. Okay. Also, sometimes, mainly because as you saw in the painter process, I like a lot to see how the light reacts to the actual surface and when I'm working with the height map. So usually other thing that I do is at the beginning I set the roughness all the way up, even if it seems a little bit too glossy. It helps me a lot to see the details. And also I think I want to change the 3D map, the environment, sorry. So let's see if I can find Tomoko. Okay, I set the 3D environment to Tomoko because we're rendering with Tomoko, so I want to have the closest result to what I'm going to see in Painter. Okay, well, with that said, also the uniform color usually is I leave it as 0.5 at the beginning. And since we are creating a full non-metallic material, we really don't care about the metallic output, so we can leave it as black. So we have this basic shape. Okay, now after the edge detect, let's organize this a little bit. Here I create where is it? Okay, let's add a frame and let's call it base shape, just to keep things organized. Now we can move this all the way here and we can continue. Now, as you can see here in the 2D map at the moment, the change from the grout or the inside part between the rocks and the rocks, it's too sharp. So first we need to add a bevel. So I create a bevel node, and I want it to be really small, maybe something like this, 0.005, and let's smooth it a little. As you can see, if I smooth it, the effect increases. So I only want it like this. Now if we connect it to the chain, we can see how the transition between the grout and the rocks is a lot softer. Now, thanks to that gradient that I have, I can control how the gradient will behave by adding a curve node. So I add the curve node again. Now, as you can see, with this I can totally define the shape of the rock. You see? Remember, if you have any questions, let me know. Then what's next? Okay, I see. Now, if we see this 2D map, one thing that I see immediately is that almost all the lines are the same width, and we need to break that because otherwise it will seem too procedural. So an easy way to do it is by adding a non-uniform blur. You can connect it to both inputs. In the non-uniform, we can reduce the intensity. We don't need too much, maybe something like this, 1.3. Density. Also maybe more samples. And this, the uniform blur will do is it will blur all the edges towards the white parts at a different ratio. So now we can add a blend and multiply the original with the result of the non-uniform blur. I change this to multiply, and with the opacity I can control how much I want the effect to appear, as you can see here in the 3D view. Let's leave it for now around 3.3. Now the shapes are a lot better. And let's call this, let's add a frame again, and let's call this edge roundness. After that, well, this seems a little bit too clean, so we need to add some edge damage to the shapes. One easy way to do it is, for example, let me make some space here. Carlos de Rosa says, seems pretty logic this software looks like Houdini, sort of speak. Yeah, it's really once it's really similar once you understand how Node works. It's the same as, for example, with Mari when you paint with nodes, or Houdini when you create all the node networks in Houdini. Or software Nuke, for example, also uses nodes. And most shaders actually, hyper shading, Maya, Blender, the shader part. So everything nodes, once you just understand how nodes work, working in a structured way is not that difficult. Okay, let's go back to the edge damage. I think we can start by mixing two noises. Let's bring out the clouds 1 and the clouds 2. I think will work fine. And what I want to do is to mix these two noises. You can see here, this is the clouds 1, this is the clouds 2, and the result. But I want to switch to overlay to mix both of them. And maybe not that strongly, so around 0.5 is okay. And here we can okay. Then I can use a histogram scan to select a specific part of all this noise. As you can see here, using the histogram scan, I can select how much of all the image to actually take into account for this. And I think what I want is maybe around 0.2. It's okay. I don't want all the image. I want a little bit more contrast, some dark parts, because I don't want the edge to look too continuous. Then I need I need a way to control how much inside the edge will be affected. So let's do this. We can use a bevel, for example, again, and we take the initial edge detect, and in the bevel, let's reduce this to 0.3. I want this effect because all the edge won't be in the ground, but will be inside. So I'm creating a mask of that part that will be affected by the damage. Once I have the bevel, again, this result, if we see the histogram, we're not using all this part of the spectrum. So we add an auto levels, and with that, we use everything. Now we add a levels, and with the levels, what we can do is we can clamp the top part, and that way, with these levels, we can control how much this noise will affect the edges. Control the width of the damage. So now, if I do something like this, and for example this to subtract, I have this variation. And by controlling this, I can control how strong and how inside the rock shape the damage will appear. I think something like this will be nice for now. Actually, maybe a little less. Maybe something like this. Now let's invert the grayscale. And add a blend node. What information we have. And this. And we set it to multiply. Finally, we connect it to the main chain. And you can see that right now, with this we can control how much of the rocks in the edge are damaged. For now I want something like this just to create the first layer of damage and to break the... Mainly what I want to do is to... This seems a little bit too round and not organic at all. So I want to give a little bit of an organic look by breaking the edges, as you can see here. Let me close the histogram. And as you can see, thanks to the non-uniform blur that we used, the amount of damage depending on the edge is different in every part. That also helps to sell a little bit more the realism. Let's create a frame for this and call it edge damage. Okay, now the next step will be we can add the first layer of deformation of the light, same as with the ceramic. So we can start with a pearly noise. Maybe reduce the size, this is too much, maybe something like this. And let's add a blend node. Let's set it to multiply and reduce this. The effect is too much right now, so let's reduce it maybe something like 0.1. We just want enough, as you can see here. If I reduce everything, the light is almost straight when it affects, and the more I increase it, light gets deformed, similar to the ceramic in Painter. So I set it right now to 0.1. I just want a little bit of the effect on the back under all of the other effects. But something that I noticed is that let me increase it for now. If you see the noise is really procedural. You can see how it crosses all the boundaries of the rocks, and we need to break that. To break that, an easy way to do it is by using a flood fill. So we can start by creating an edge detect. Again, I'm taking the initial auto levels, the edge detect, and again I can say the same value, 1.3. 1.3. Okay. I don't use the same because here, if you remember, I add a little bit of roundness, and here I don't want any roundness at all. I want something more like this, with straight lines. Now we can create a flood fill node, and this will bring me this weird green and yellowish and red values. Now we can add a flood fill to random color, and we can get one different color per each tile. Then we can do an RGB a split node, and with these three nodes we can have different variations of luminance for each tile. The only issue is that we have these dark lines and we want to remove them. To remove them is really easy. We just need a distance node. We connect the masks that we created here in the source input and the edge detect that we created in the mask input. And with that, we remove the line, as you can see. We need to repeat this process for the 4 channels. So let's do it for R, for G. Now the blue. Okay, I misconnected. What I need is this one. I have the R. Here I also connected wrong. Here is the red channel. Here is the green channel, red channel, green channel, blue channel, and we can duplicate it and connect the alpha as well. And we have now 4 different masks for total different effects. For example, we can go back to the edge damage that we did. And here, if you recall, we have this blend of 2 cloud nodes. We can add here a directional warp where we connect the result of the blend in the input, and we can connect one of the masks there and then increase in a crazy way the directional warp. This will make that each style has an independent different part of the noise that also helps to sell more the realism. And we're going to do the same with this purling noise. Again, this one goes to the input of the directional warp, and this one goes to the intensity, and we increase it like crazy. And now, as you can see here, the more I increase it, the effect no longer looks continuous all the time, because I'm moving the directional warp in this this quantity. Sometimes it will actually look similar, especially if the colors in the mask are too similar. Like for example in this part, as you can see here, you can see sort of the shape. Let me see if I can use the pencil so you can see it better. Here we can see this, the issue persists, right? We can see a shape going sort of like this right here, and that is because in the mask, if we open the mask, these 2 values are too similar gray. We can again play with the random seed to change that here, and we're going to get different values. For some reason it's not working. Let me check. Okay, sorry. Here in the float field to random color, we can move it, and this will help us break it. Now the effect is no longer here. We have a little bit more randomness. Let me reduce this again because this is too much. And we only want to break a little bit the silhouette of the light, as you can see here. You can see all this bumpiness, right? How the image is doing all this with the light instead of straight lights. Okay, let's continue. This will be, let me call this large deformation, better, light deformation large. Now the next thing. Okay, another thing. If you're having any issues on seeing this stuff, especially in the normal map, don't be afraid to increase the normal intensity. For example, like this. This especially will be helpful to show off the small details that we're going to add in a little bit. So let's start with some black and white spots too. And let's make it a little bigger so we can increase the size. All I did was add a transformation node and click this to increase the size to double it. We also want to break the noise at shape level, so again we use the directional warp. We can use another one of our masks, and again we increase it like crazy. Try use different numbers to get different results, and maybe just add a little bit of randomness with the angle, the warp. Then I can have an histogram select, and let's decrease the range to almost 0, maybe 0.07, and let's find a good spot. What I want is something like this, some small, only a few small dots that can be all around the map. Something like this is fine. Again, let's add an auto levels. Let's blur them a little bit, because right now this might be too sharp or too small, like this, for example, these pixels. So we increase this to 1 quality and just blur it a little bit to have this kind of gradient in these small shapes. And now we can add a blend. We connect it to the main chain. We don't need. And let's move it to subtract. And what we added were those small holes. Let me add it to the 3D view, and now you can see them. Maybe they are a little bit too strong, so let's reduce this, maybe around half, something like this. So now we have the holes. Okay. And let's call this a frame again. Let's call this it holes large. Let me move all the outputs a little bit further so we have more space. And let's do another one that is basically the same. So we can copy this. This time I want the holes to be a little bit smaller, so I don't need the transformation. And be sure to change the seed to avoid repetition. Also, we're going to use a different mask because we don't want to repeat it too much. Here in the position, let's maybe increase it a little bit more, go a little bit further, something like this. I'm looking for these small spots mainly, but I don't mind also these larger ones. I think that they can look fine. Again, auto levels, and the blur, I think it's okay. And let's blend it again with the main chain. Subtract it. Let's subtract it. And these ones need to be less shallow. Maybe something like this. Now we have these big holes here, but we also have these smaller ones. And that's what we were looking for. So we can frame this as whole small. Any questions so far? If not, let me know. If yes, also feel free to ask a question. Okay, now for the next detail on the height map, we can use the exact same trick that we did with the ceramic. That is to add a moisture noise. Let's increase the scale a little bit. Again, let's modify it with the directional warp. Since now we use every input, you can see, oh, well, actually okay, actually here we use all the channels. We can just use a histogram shift after the distance, and this, if we play with the position, it will give you a different mask, as you can see here. Or we can use, I think this is okay. Or we can basically just duplicate this and duplicate this and just connect a new channel if we want a different thing. And what we need to duplicate is the random color. Okay, let me do it this way. I have a float fill. We also have the option to float fill to random grayscale, and this will get us all the way to here. So now I can just do the same distance trick, and if I move the random shift, I'll get a different mask. So let's do this. We connect it here in the moisture noise. Again, we're gonna go crazy. Something like 160 is okay. Maybe add a little bit more warp angle. And let's connect it to the main chain with a multiply. And little amount of opacity, because otherwise it will be too harsh. And you can see it completely gives us a different surface feeling. If I remove it completely, we have this. If I increase it all the way, I have this kind of rock noise. Actually, we can maybe layer it. So maybe we can do something like 0.2 is okay. But I think that I will like have also this, but with a different seed, and maybe add the levels to play with the contrast, and also add it here. So we can layer this noise. As you can see here, the noise at the moment. If I remove the small details that we did before, this is too strong, and maybe we want this. Again, multiply. Maybe something like this is fine, but not everywhere. So we can do is to do a histogram select on this guy, something like this, to create a mask that we're going to use for this layer effect. Now, as you can see, the histogram that is a little bit harsher, that we can even increase the contrast to make it a little bit stronger, or we can play with the levels any way we want. For example, we like this, it's only affecting some of the rocks, like this one. Okay, and we can increase the effect, and after that we can have an overall small moisture noise making all the rest of the surface also noisy, but without that harsh effect. And we can add that way a little bit more variation, as you can see here. Maybe it's a little bit too strong, so we can reduce it. Maybe something like this is fine. And now we can really start seeing the material. So let me frame this as a small noise, actually medium noise, and this one as small noise. Carlos, don't worry, it's not that difficult. It's actually a pretty easy setup, because I needed to create this material really quickly in order to finish on the deadline of the MeetMat contest. I actually did this quite fast. It's quite straightforward and simple. It's not that difficult. And actually we are almost done with the height map, which is the most lengthy part. So something that I like to do with all the when I do tiles is add two things: height variation and angle variation. An easy way to add the angle variation, for example, will be to, we can grab, for example, directly this guy, with the distance node like this, and we can use it, and we can we can add a blend node, select the base, and then add the mask that we created. So we have this mask, and we have the rest of the height map. We set it to multiply, and what this will do is we'll control the height of each tile. Let me change this to maybe to plain high resolution, maybe it will be easier, and let me increase the scale. I think that can help. Okay, as you can see here, what I'm doing by mixing this mask that we created earlier, that is a grayscale variation, with the main chain with multiply. With the opacity, I can control how even are the different tiles, in this case the rocks. So maybe something like this, because we want the variation to be a little bit aggressive, as we see here. Let me see a good picture. Okay, at least as we see here, the variation is too harsh. Okay, because we want it to be noticeable, even if it's small. So maybe something around 0.8 it's fine to have this effect. Maybe it's a little bit too strong because we are losing, not so much, but we're losing out some of the details of the rocks. So maybe we can go a little around 60, something like this. Let's go back to the rounded cylinder. I like the rounded cylinder because, again, because I like to work with light. This one is better to get the vibe and the effects of the light on the surface than the plane. Mainly because I can really explore this reflection. What I'm looking right now is this. You see this reflection that is here, right? What I'm doing is moving the camera to check with that reflection different parts of the surface. That way I can see if it's making sense or not. Okay, maybe it's a little bit harsh right now, so we have it like this. But the other thing that is happening is that every tile is flat. It has the same angle. So an easy trick, let me first frame this one as height variation. An easy trick to fix that every tile has or every rock in this case has the same angle is, again, with the float fill. You remember this node? There is a float fill to random gradient. Float fill to gradient. Float fill to gradient. We connect the float fill, and if we set the angle variation all the way to 1, each tile, in this case, so each rock, will have a different angle. And this one will be very useful for the effect that we are looking for right now. So again, we have a blend node. We set it to multiply, and we connect the angle variation. Now, if we reduce it, again, this effect is easier to see on a plane. You can see that every rock has the same angle. If I increase it, every rock has different angle. And this is what we want right now. Okay, so let's call this let's frame it and let's call it angle variation. Okay, let me check one thing. Okay, sometimes when you do multiply or stuff like that in the chain, as you can see here, you lose a part of the grayscale range. So a good practice can be to add between the blending points auto levels. That way, after each effect that you add, you can be sure that you are using the full range and you are not losing micro detail in the grayscale. Let's go back to the rounded cylinder, and now we have the height map, and that will be all for the height. So basically we have, if we recall what we did, we used a splatter circular, mix it with a distance node to get this cell-like pattern. Then with an edge detect, we define the edges of the shape. After that, with some blurring, we modify the way the edge is in contact with the black parts, in this case the sort of grout, and created an edge roundness. Then we added damage to the edges. Then we added an overall shape light deformation. I don't know if you remember this one, with a purling noise that actually we can increase to make the rocks a little bit more organic. Actually, I think it looks nice. Then we created some small holes. After that, we created some smaller holes, but not as deep. Then we added we added in some of the tiles with this mask moisture noise to create some variation. As we can see here. Let me increase the so we can notice it. Let's see if I can find one of those rocks. Okay, like this rock. Like this one. Then we added another small moisture noise, but overall. Overall the shape. That gives the small like deformation to avoid this plastic look that you can see here. Make it a little bit more rough. Then we added a height variation to make the rocks uneven. And then we added more detail by multiplying it with an angle variation to make them look less organized, as you can see here. And basically, that's the height map. Okay, how long has it been right now? 1 hour. Okay, we're good. We're good on time because it's really simple. The graph is not that complex. It's a pretty simple rock setup. So let's continue with the roughness. This one is really fast and easy to do. But first, let me talk you about a node. This one is the roughness. Okay. Now let's move the color and the metallic. We can start the roughness with a cloud tree, for example. Since all we really want. Okay, let me. Substance was doing something strange. Okay, anyway. We can start the roughness with a cloud tree, as you can see here. Maybe make it a little bit smaller by increasing the scale. And then there is a node that I really like to use called multi-directional warp grayscale. The good thing about this node is that you can input a height map. For example, I'm going to connect the small noise to get all the detail that we have all the way here. I don't want the height variation and angle variation. And if we increase the intensity, you can see how the noise is sort of following the height variation. Let me see, it's easier if I do it with, for example, Berlin noise. I think will be easier to see. If I connect the Berlin noise, let's make the shapes a little bit bigger and add a noise and use a micro-directional warp, and I increase the intensity. I can go crazy with intensity. You can see how the noise starts to follow the follow the height and starts making layers on it. That is great for roughness because it can really allow the effect, for example, of dirt in tiles or of in metal slates or something that is non-organic. You can with the multidirectional warp you can give up the vibe that there is dirt that has been there and that dirt is following the height, and with that you can really sell the idea that or the history of the material. So that's why I like to add this small noise that I connected here, this part of the chain, and as you can see here, the noise is actually following the different rock height variation. That's the same technique that I used, for example, to explain it a little bit better. Here again, I don't know if you can see. Let me see if I open this one. Okay, I think it looks better in here. Open it. My internet's a little bit slow, so sorry about that. Okay, if you go to my ArtStation, let me put the link on the chat so you can check it out. And if you look in detail in this in the roughness, let me put also this one so you can check it as well. You can see how in these shapes, for example here in this flower, the roughness is sort of following the waves like this, and here in these parts like this, and all this effect is done by using this multidirectional warp. Also this, for example, also here you can see, okay, wait a second, I think I found a better example here. Here you can see how the noise is doing something. This is too big. Let me reduce the size. You can see how is doing something like this, the roughness, doing this kind of curvature that emulates, for example, a cloth path, a dirty cloth trying to clean the tiles. That effect also is done with the multidirectional warp. So that kind of effect is the reason why I really like to use this noise called multidirectional warp. And this one is actually this one is an old version, because I think that right now there is a multidirectional warp. No, is a multidirectional warp that comes with. Okay, I have it here. Wait a second. I think this one is the one that comes with Designer. But this actually, what I have is this one. I'm going to put the the link on the description, but it's an old tutorial 3 years ago that Substance made, where they explain this node. So let me share the link so you can all of you can check it later. Okay, it's in the chat. Well, let's continue. So we have the directional warp, and what we want now is to play with the levels a little bit to adjust the roughness. Maybe something like this. Because we really want it to be rough, because in the end they are rocks. We're going to add a little bit more variation, but we start with this. After that, okay, we can grab this uniform color. Remember, every time that you're working with roughness, never to use in your end material 0 or 1, because that's really unrealistic. So try to use, you can use values that are near to 0 or near to 1, but never use full white or full black. So let's maybe do something like this, and max lighten like this, maybe around here. To have the color in this range. If we check the histogram, we're in this part of the histogram right now. And what would that give us is a little bit of wetness. Did you see what we had before? This seemed like really dry rocks, but with this adjustment, now there is an underneath layer of wetness in the rocks. Then the next thing that we can use is simply add a little variation. We can again connect this to the base, set it to max lighten, and because the roughness is too uniform in all the rocks, we can again grab one of these masks that we did earlier. We add it with a max lighten that will take only the values that are lighter. That is why if we check the histogram, we have this, and after that we have this. We push towards the left the histogram, max lighten, and let's reduce the opacity because we don't want it to be too strong, this effect. Maybe around here. And with that we go from a really uniform, I mean, we have actually variation in the roughness and breaks. Here you can see the grout parts and the rock parts a little bit. I think it's easier to see them here. This, you can see that this one is a rock, this one is a rock, this one is another rock. But with this, you can really differentiate that at each rock. So we have a more variation in the roughness. And we can do the same effect, but with by darkening to add a little bit more variation. Again, we take the base, we connect it to the background, we connect it to the output, and we grab another mask. For example, let's grab this one. Now we set it to min darken, and again we reduce the opacity, maybe around here. And what we get by doing that is, as you see here, we only have this part of the spectrum. Now we have a little bit more of the back end of the left part, that is the black part. And now the light is reacting different in each part. If we set up, for example, the base color all the way to black, sometimes it's easier to see the roughness map, as you can see here. Now the final part, I think, will be to the grout. I need to add a really rough part, so we need something close to white. So we blend this, add a uniform color, grayscale, almost white. We connect this on this part, and we need the edges. So in order to get the edges, we can go to edge damage, we connect it to all levels. We have this. With the levels we increase the contrast to really control where the edges are. You can see here. We grab this, invert grayscale, and we can use this as a mask, and we get something like this. And with that, if we check the roughness, the sand or dirt or whatever is between the rocks, it's almost one in roughness. I made the roughness like this instead of going for a really dry roughness like this one. I set it like this because it reminds me, for example, let me find an image quickly. Wait a second. It reminds me this is an image of another project that I'm working on, but it reminds me of what is happening here. If you see, this is rust, right? And usually all this green part is rust. And usually when you're talking about rust, you're talking about something that is really rough if you see it in real life. But here in this image, you can see it's kind of glossy. And it's glossy because something that commonly happens to these kind of things that are that you put in your house or in museums or stuff like that. In museums not necessarily, but for example, some antiques that you can buy, when they take the pictures to sell them, they clean it with an oily liquid in order to make them shine and to make them show better in the light. So I was thinking that in the end, MeetMat is also something that it needs to be displayed, as you can see, something that needs to be displayed. So I imagine that also the base and MeetMat itself was cleaned with this sort of oily liquid. That's why I went for this kind of look on the rocks instead of a really dry one. Remember to always, when you're creating the materials of an asset, to always try to think of a story of the asset that makes sense in order to make it work. Okay, I think that will be all the roughness. So now we have already the normal map, as you can see here. We have the height map, and we have the ambient occlusion. The ambient occlusion, maybe we can go a little bit lower. And now what's remaining is the color. And the color is also pretty straightforward and simple. So let me copy this from the other graph, mainly because I want to keep these values, and I no longer have the initial reference image that I use for this. So we start again by going to our float fill masks and selecting one. Let me select this one. This one is, I think, is the less used, and connect it to this gray map. This is going to give me these colors. Okay, and the ramp is really simple. This I only selected the different colors from a reference image and adjusted the level, the different pins on the gradient to get the look that I want. Okay. Now, what I like to do with the image, if you can make the color map as complex or as simple as you want, but some of the basic techniques that I usually do in every color map will be, for example, start with an HSL node in order to overlay the exact same color based on a mask in itself. So first now we need a mask. Let's create one, for example, from clouds 1. We can again use the power of the multi-directional warp, but this time we can warp it on itself. Now if we go crazy, we get this map that is also really cool. As you can see, we have a lot of information, a lot of variation. I don't like this, especially these two black holes, so maybe we can, well, I think it's not that bad. But this kind of map gradient is great for layering. So now, for example, if we connect this, and in this one we darken it, we can see this effect, right? We can even, if we go use our levels, we can even increase the contrast to make it more apparent. But you can see how the directional warp gave us a lot of information to play with. It's really cool. And now we have all this information for free. Now we connect it here. We can start seeing some variation that is really cool. For example, in this part. Now, I also like to do the same that I did here, that I started with by adding first the light colors. If you remember, first I lighten it in the roughness, and then I darken it. I like to do the same. So again, another blend node. I take again the initial values, because I don't want to take the part that is already altered by this guy, and we'll use a different mask. In this case, let's use, for example, a clouds tree, and just increase the scale and increase the disorder to get something like this. The disorder is like a quick random. Okay, now we connect this and we connect this, and now we have an extra layer, as you can see here. But maybe this is too strong, or so we need to increase a little bit. More than strong is all over the place, right? As you can see here, everything seems to be washing out with this one. So we need to increase the contrast in order to get a better white and black mask. Maybe something like this. Better. That way we can keep these dark parts as well. And that gives us this cool variation of color, like for example, in this rock, or in this one, or in this one. Now, I think that the next part is, if you remember, we created some holes, and it doesn't make sense that the holes are also the same color, because usually in holes you get dirt or sand, or so. Let's add a color for that. Again, I'm going to copy this gradient map that is basically a gradient for a brown, sort of brown gradient. We can copy this setup, connect it here in order to get this variation, but also remember to change the random seed and maybe the scale, because we don't want to okay, the scale not, I don't think so, but the random seeds, yeah, because we don't want to have the same value, right? Now we can blend it, but we need to create the mask for the holes. So in order to create the mask for the holes, we have these two, the hole large and the hole small. So we can easily create a blend, select this one, select this one, and just select it to max lighten. That way we can have all the holes in the material, and we use it as a mask for the holes. Now we have these brownish dots. And finally, let me copy this one. This is another one. This one is for the grout. So we can start with a dirt, for example. Let's select a dirt tree. We have this. Maybe it's a little light. So let's reduce it a little bit. And we can use the mask that we used before in the roughness. For the edges, it will be this one, to have this grout in between. Okay, but now that I see it, I think this one and this one look quite similar. So let's change this one a little bit. We can use an HSL and play with it. For example, maybe something like this. Yeah, I think that looks better. So finally we have the color map, and with that we have here the normal, the height, and the ambient occlusion. And actually I don't like in the normal these lines. These ones. I think they are too harsh. So let's see if we can do something about it just before we finish this. This one, maybe we can soften it a little bit. Let's see where we lose. Maybe here before we start adding the... Okay, here it seems like here is the issue. The issue is happening here. So I think that here we can add a blur. Increase the quality, and we only need a little bit of a blur. Maybe even less than that. Let's see. Clean this one out. Okay, no, that's not working. See. Okay, now, well, I need to check that out, but in general, this is our normal. Oh, okay, I think I know what is happening. The issue is maybe that we're doing a little... This is too strong. The angle variation maybe too strong. Let's see if that fixes a little bit, but I think it has to do something with the angle and height variation. Maybe they are both a little bit too strong. Anyway, we have here the height. The height again, I like to add a little bit of a blur to avoid any tessellation issues. We have the ambient occlusion, as you can see here, and we can, if we feel it's too strong, we can always soften it a little bit more. I'll leave it like this, mainly because the detail is too small in MeetMat, that you need to exaggerate some stuff in order to get noticed. And the base color, like here, and the roughness. Again, since the detail is too small, all the maps are really exaggerated, and also it wasn't too much work to enter a little bit more extra detail because it's just a small part of the model. Now we render it in iRay, for example. Let me see here. Division, parametric, length 8, and you can see here the material. And that will be all for now. At least with that we end the stream. How long are we off, Arthur? Okay, I think we're not that bad on time. So again, sorry if it was a little bit too slow, but this is a slow process, and I wanted to really show from scratch how to create the material instead of just diving through the different nodes and talking quickly about it like other tutorials I've seen on YouTube. But I hope this can be helpful for you guys, and you might even be able to replicate it. If you have any doubt, let me know. Carlos de la Rosa says, I can use that to replicate the Mayan jade mask. Yeah, actually that was one of the inspirations in my reference. So you can definitely use it for that. Maybe some changes, and maybe you want to play. I will do it in design in Painter, so the different rocks, because maybe you want a lot of control on the on how the rocks are positioned, mainly in the eyes and the lips of the shape. Well, anyway, any questions so far? Any doubts? Anything that I can help you with? If not, we can go to the giveaway. Again, if remember everyone that is here, please write your name in the chat, write reason in the chat, so I can take you into account in the giveaway. If you don't see your name, let me know. I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes so I can give enough time to everyone. Yeah, you're on. Read some time. So you okay? Let me. Junias, Rodrigo, Ignacio. Kylo, I'm using a beta version of LiveLink and found a minor issue. Okay, you please contact me via Discord. Let's see which easier way for me to help you out. Or if it's a bug, for me to notice it and add it to the to-do list. Three minutes. Anyone else? In the meantime, any questions? Anything, or for example, any recommendation of what else you would like to see? Maybe some of you want to see a more 101 tutorial of Substance Designer at some point. Miguel Faber. As long as it's about Mexican art, I'm cool with. Well, actually, Carlos, I'm trying to diversify as well, so I'm trying to do different stuff. But yeah, I still have a lot of Mexican art ideas to work with. We're also reaching to the end of the MeetMat series because I think that I only need to show you guys how I did the base. And if you any one of you comment about the specific part of the color part, I also can show you that, and also need to show you how I did the holes in the ceramic. After that, we are finishing up with the MeetMat. So I'm trying to get new ideas or what other kind of stuff you want to see in the stream. So please let me know via the comments in the video or via Twitter. So feel free to let me know what kind of tutorials or what kind of stuff you want me to show you guys. Another thing that I would like to try to start, an idea that I have, is to start a series of how to work with MDL. the other type of nodes that are in Designer. I haven't found many information about them, but I think that it could be interesting. More if you use iRay or V-Ray for rendering, it can be very useful. Yeah, as Arthur said, don't forget to like and subscribe if you like the videos. That helps that helps us a lot. And thanks, Kylo. Good to hear that you really like the live link. Ten seconds. Anyone else? Okay, I think it's time now. So let's do the giveaway. Again, there will be no trial. This will be the first one will be the good one. So let's do it. Okay, the winner is Kylo. So please, if you're in the chat in Discord, please contact me and I'll give you I'll let you know how to get the license of Reason. And congratulations. And for the rest, good luck. Better luck the next time. Reason is continue to help their help and the support to the channel. So we probably keep doing some giveaways for the time being. Don't forget to contact me via Twitter or via the Discord, Kylo. Anyway, sorry, Miguel. Better luck next time. Well, I think that there are no more questions at the moment, but if you have anyone or if you have any difficulties by following the stream, again at your own pace, let me know and I'll try to answer your questions. Okay, and for now I'm almost losing my voice, so that will be all. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel, to follow me via in Twitter, in Instagram if you want to, and be sure to keep in contact so we can define the new tutorials and all the other stuff. And remember, stay safe.